So a few of the weapons have changed up since I first used them in Dead Cells. I'm talking ones like the spiked boots, wrenching whip, let's see if I can just name all of them, Death Orb, and explosive crossbow, especially the explosive crossbow, but of course I used that back in the alpha version, so I don't even think it was really fair to compare them at that time. Besides, I've also used that a lot since that time. Anyway, Death Orb, that was the one that I just started up this video and I said whatever comes to me is the one that I'm going to use. And since the first shop that showed up was a skill shop, Death Orb or bust, essentially. And indeed, there it be. So Death Orb has been changed up, so now it will hang on enemies a little bit when you fire it off. You can fire out 2 at once, which is an enormous change. Like, I cannot even overstate how much more powerful that makes Death Orb if you're doing a Death Orb specific run. I mean, I guess if you're not doing a Death Orb specific run, it's maybe not whatever. Anyway. And also it goes through shield, so it's not going to disappear as soon as it gets hit by an invincibility bubble or a shield bearer. It doesn't do damage to those enemies. Like, if a shield bearer blocks it, it will just go through the shield bearer, but not actually deal damage or anything. So the goal here is that I was going to try to go for as much like tactics as possible, because one of the big things with the Death Orb, and one of the things that I think that is important to note about it, is that it is 100% passive damage. You don't need to even be near it like you would with a turret, which I would consider the other source of passive damage that you would get in the game, making it kind of extremely powerful. And indeed, when I get a little bit later into the game and I'm taking a couple curse chests, you can just kind of, it is a weapon that you can set and forget, which is kind of crazy. So the build that I was going for, at least right off the bat here, was that I managed to get a, well, obviously cooldown reduction, but managed to get a denial wave. So what I could do conceivably, and what I tried to do couldn't really get to work as well as I would like it to, is that I would knock enemies into the Death Orb. But other than that, good synergies with Death Orb, 100% on fire is good. So you grab something like a Firebrands would be fine. Firebrands especially for the range, or a Fire Torrent for close range stuff. Death Orbs, and I think even in this run, can get the applies oil to enemies, which is pretty powerful. And I think also poison enemies, and a lot of really, I've said this before, I'll say it again, tactics skills have some pretty good affixes on there, and they can be very, very powerful. And that is definitely no different for the Death Orb. And now that it's been buffed, I would say pretty significantly, it's, especially in this run, become maybe one of the things that I would say, if you're not going to go full on turret mode, Death Orb has done a lot of good for me, because here are the basic 2 types. Well, the 2 types of skills you're going to be attacking with are pretty much, I would say, passive damage, which would be Death Orb, which would be any of the turrets. What else? Maybe like a fire grenade, and then burst damage, which is all the other grenades, your knife storm, your denial wave here, a lot of that sort of stuff. And I think that overall, passive items are more powerful, not only because they tend to have better affixes on them, like the fire grenade, you only get causes arrows to fall from stuff, or maybe if you're lucky, fires out a bunch of arrows at the same time, and those aren't nearly as good as huge damage increase on enemies, or applying things like oil or whatever to enemies that you're fighting. And the other thing is that when you're using passive damage, damage is done pretty much until you can put out another thing. Turrets do technically have health bars. Yeah, there was a good usage of the denial wave into the Death Orb. Yeah, turrets technically have health bars, but most enemies, unless they're explicitly focusing them, don't really do a ton of extra damage to them or anything. If you take the cooldown reduction, is what I'm saying, you will be able to fire out another turret before you lose any damage from it, whereas a grenade is a one and done sort of deal. And obviously you have to put yourself more in harm's way when you're using melee weapons. it's part of the reason why, even though tactics makes you squishier, it's still a better option for dealing a lot of damage over time. And I think that one of the ways you can really talk about the newest update, the King's Hand update here, is that in a lot of the early game, right up until you get to the castle itself, you're fighting the assassin, you can burst damage works super well, because burst damage works, I would say, exceptionally well against all of the current bosses and all of the current enemies and all the current areas. And then when you get into the castle, enemies start to take just enough more damage that it turns from being a sprint, you know, able to just burst your way through every one of your every object that gets in your path, into more of a marathon. And that's not entirely... And I mean, you can't burst your way through, like, literally everything. For example, the mechanical spiders in the prison depths there, they take quite a bit of health. But all of the bosses, the enemies you're forced to fight, you can really... Like, having 2 knife storms will burst them down almost instantly. And then, especially when you get to the King's Hand, the Hand of the King, which I said that like they're 2 different names, and whatever. Anyway, then suddenly he is so tanky that you really can't throw down 2 cluster bombs and have it be, you know, an effective way to fight him. That just doesn't work like that. Even if you have good synergies, and you can have some pretty good synergies, it's the constant damage that you're getting from passive items like the Death Orb here that I think do way more for you than any... And I suppose it would also include, you know, if you got in there with melee weapons a lot, or spells, or any sort of stuff like that gives you some pretty obvious advantages when it comes to fight. Anything that lets you dodge consistently while also dealing out a lot of damage is very powerful. And it also helps that said weapons have the best mutations and the best affixes to them. It's frustrating. I mean, the only thing that's even comparable would be a pretty powerful melee weapon, and even then, you can't focus entirely on dodging while having, say, a Death Orb plowing into the King's Hand's face the entire time. Pretty much I've said before that I think the tactics is better balanced now. It's not super good balanced. The balancing is not amazing yet, and I think there's definitely more Motion Twin could probably do to help that sort of to give other things more. I think you see what I'm saying, though, right? I don't know, whatever. Anyway, other thing is that I was told that apparently the Hokuto's bow... Oh, wait, before I get into that, additionally, one of the interesting things that you can get out of the Death Orb especially is a lot of rally. So if you do take a hit after throwing out a Death Orb, you can generally get a lot of health back, and that includes against, like, the hand fight, for example, where you could probably just throw out 2 Death Orbs, sit in a corner with a shield up, like a frontline shield, for example, like I had for a while there, and just tank everything, especially if you took the rally mutation that gives you extra time to rally up stuff. I don't know, it's... because, yeah, you don't get rally off of turrets, but you definitely do get... It's a huge advantage, along with the fact that Death Orb is now gone from being pretty good to being probably incredible at this point. You certainly have noticed the amount of damage that I'm doing to these enemies here. I mean, it's not a 100% perfect thing. If you get hit multiple times, you do lose the rally and blah, 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 etc. But it's something you can do, I think. I'll definitely have to play around with a rally-focused build against some of the later enemies in the game, or even any enemy in the entire game. That has good synergy with the Death Orb already, so why not pick that up? It's not like I want to be using... I was just using the Broadsword for one of the more recent runs I did on 4-cell mode. This is just 2-cell, but... I I feel like if I'm going to be going mostly tactics, I should get in there as hard as possible. Anyway, back to the Hokuto's bow. So, I have been told that the Hokuto's bow, apparently the mark that it gives to enemies does not only affect just damage that you deal with a main hand weapon, which is usually how damage increasing stuff works in the game, but apparently it works on everything, including stuff like... Oh, come on, get down there. Including stuff like damage over time, your dots, or turret. I'm not entirely sure about turret strikes, but damage over time was the big one. So getting a Hokuto's bow and something like a knife storm or flame grenade or, I don't know, an alchemic gun, that is a very... It definitely changes the way that I think about the Hokuto's bow, which I was already more into. Now that they changed it up so that the mark gets spread to enemies after the enemies get killed. You see the big bloody explosion around enemies when that happens. And that's... it gets the brain thinking. Let's just go with that. Whatever that phrase meant... Well, it gets me thinking about builds that I can do with that. Alright, I don't even know what I was thinking with the usage of Denial Wave there. Pushback does not work on elites or bosses very well. No, the real reason why I want to come to the Incomplete One fight here is because he walks almost in line with the Death Orb. Yeah, he'll still do the yell into invincibility, but like, look at that. It's a good combo is what I'm saying. Well, I mean, if he would stop yelling so much, it would be an amazing combo. Certainly, I think having the Hokuto's bow combined with the Fire Torrent is a potent combination. But I think that you can do better than that. Like I said, the Alchemic Gun or various grenades, anything that does Toxicloud, I don't know. It does make me think that it could have some, as well as the fact that it has damage reduction on it, which is great just alone. But it does make me think that you can easily fit that into a lot of 4-cell builds and get something really good out of that. So I don't want to talk about it too much now until I get a... Actually, you know what? Hokuto's bow is also another weapon that has been changed up since I used it originally. So look forward to the next 4-cell episode being Hokuto's bow showcase. With 4 boss cells active. Yes, yes. Just going with a traditional sort of mix-up of mutations for this run. It's annoying how consistent that is. I suppose when you're doing very focused runs too, that also is kind of how that goes. Otherwise, I would take something like pyrotechnics instead, and in all likelihood, you'd get Tranquility or get at least a single turret. I don't know. There's a few different builds that you can make here, but I think that extra health and extra invincibility time as well as cooldown, it's the holy trinity, as you could say, for mutations. If you're never going to go wrong taking them. You might be able to find something better, but it's never going to be bad. Well, I suppose unless you're doing like 4-cell mode where you have not... Come on. Line up. There you go. Yeah, unless you're doing like 4-cell mode and you've already exhausted all of your flask charges, but... Woof! Let me tell you, you got more issues than emergency triage being less useful at that point in time. Yeah, go pretty hard on that tactics. It's not something that I've been able to do since since the last update. Because those sort of tactics will get you murdered. But with the rally, you see. Yeah, this is probably the example of passive damage. You don't even have to be anywhere near these enemies to get them hit. And that's not even in the terms of like turrets. It continues going even if you're not anywhere near it. It doesn't just disappear because it moves far enough away. It's kind of interesting that the boomerang doesn't act like that then, because why does the boomerang have a set range to it when Death Orb, which I would say can be more powerful in a lot of circumstances, has infinite range. Or at the very least, lasts a lot longer than your usual... Yeah, tracking ain't working there. Nice try, though. Or at least it has the potential of doing more damage. It moves slower. Hey, maybe that would be a change for Boomerang. Just have it move slower. I mean, I guess it does kind of get hung up on enemies. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, the Boomerang may be based off of a lot of code explicitly. Why did I not take the scroll and the money and... Huh. I mean, that could actually maybe not be the worst item to take there, but the damage reduction... I guess you could probably deflect enemies into a Death Orb, but I'm currently using Wave of Denial. Still not the name of it. Oh, man. Between King's Hand and Wave of Denial, I just don't even... Anyway, I'm using that, and I'm not even... Well, I have that, and I'm not even utilizing it as well as I probably should. So, taking an extra 20% damage, technically not, because damage reduction, whatever. Oh, and coats them with oil, and I have something that allegedly does critical damage on oiled up targets. That could also be decent too, but no, I want to go double Death Orb. Say that 10 times fast. But having that oil on there, but having the oil affix on there is making it a lot more expensive. So, what are you gonna do? I'm sure I'll find some elite somewhere, or I'll just go into that 2-cell door, open up Curse Chest, and you know, get my freak on. I don't even know. Here's another good example of the power of passivity. That didn't work as well as I wanted it to. And, okay, so yeah, Death Orb does seem to have a maximum range, but it has a higher maximum damage. Also, Wave of Denial does more to the Golem than I thought it would. Apparently you can just totally neutralize his Rocket Punch, which is kind of crazy. Also, good dodge on the Inquisitor there. That was kind of nutso. Stupid lack of teleporters in this area makes it just impossible to get anywhere. And I had already forgotten how much that had costed. Costed. How much that cost code? So, hey, that's great. You're wasting my time and everybody else's. Just get on with the game. Like, for real, though, I don't know why I'm scrounging up this much money. I really don't need to. There are much better options for this. Oh, just fight the Golem. He's not that tough. And there's where I realized, wait a second, this isn't worth it. And yet, for some reason, I decided to continue going in. Even though, again, I knew it was a curse chest. It's always a curse chest. At least I'm not in 4-cell mode, so I can actually spare a usage of my, health flask there for the invincibility. Number one way to deal with golems. Use emergency triage. Doesn't that require that you have beaten the assassin like 5 times? Yes. Like, what do you want from me? I think at this point is when I started to feel like, you know what, having that oil critical damage, which I'm still pretty sure doesn't actually work, would be nice and everything, but I think I would rather just get like a Firebrands right now so that I can make it entirely passive rather than having to be in kind of semi melee range to be able to hit enemies with the Fire Torrent while I'm also whipping out Death Orbs at the same time. And there you go. 2 of them at once. By the way, what exactly are Death Orbs supposed to be? I never understood that with spells in this game. Still no good way to get over there. But, you know, when you get a weapon, it's a physical weapon. You're using the weapon that you picked up. What are you picking up that makes it so that you shoot fire out of your hands? Like, what is the Death Orb? Did you just pick up a Death Orb? questions, and the thing is, it's like you can drop a death orb, so it's not something, you're not like carrying a book, like Book of Death Orb that you read from when you cast Death Orb. I don't, makes no sense to me. Got that lore update coming in soon enough. Also, damn, look at that damage. Got the lore update that should be coming at any point in time. Maybe that'll explain exactly what the hell the spells in this game are. Oh yeah, when you got two of those things out at once, you got synergy with the fire, you got double synergy because they're also oiled up and ready to wrestle? I don't know. It's like, the damage becomes extra embarrassing when you get hit by a golem. Man. Yeah, I was thinking at the time, you know what? Clock Tower? Sure, that could be good. But Sepulchre, a lot of not being vertically oriented accounts for a lot when it comes to using your Death Orb. And also, I did remember this time, you get a health flask refill when you go into the Sepulchre, not into the Clock Tower. Two very helpful things to remember when you're doing 2-cell runs. Which, I mean, let's be honest, I don't do as much as I've done before. You know, isn't it kind of crazy that the way that these updates have worked, it was pretty much, you know, old update, oh yeah, you know, level 1 weapon, I'll just take it through the entire game, won't even need to pick up anything else. And then the brutal update comes out, oh, well, I'll upgrade the weapons, but I'm still only using those weapons. And now that the King's Hand update has come out, it's like, I'll use the weapons as a primary damage source, but I'm also just building a full build with everything. I assume that by the time update next, whatever it's going to be called, the final update, countdown, it's just going to be like, I'm just going to do a regular run, and if I happen to pick up one of the items that I'm using, so be it. Now that's some good damage. Also, apparently that was a tracker. I couldn't even tell. Thanks, Death Orb. Ooh, crazy purple olive looking thing. Yeah, and there's the point where you can see it goes through shield bearers. It's no longer dissipates upon hitting them, but doesn't do any damage to them. The fire does enough damage alone. I think it still oils them up, but I don't... That's a different source of damage. I don't count that as... Just because it oils something up. I mean, that can also be accomplished with, like, a bucket of grease. You can also grease up your helmet with that to prevent mind flayers from eating your brain. Sorry, Ice Crossbow, not this time. And as good as it would be to pick up an upgrade for the Fire Torrent, I think it's a better idea to just wait and see if I can get a more ranged fire weapon, whether it be pyrotechnics or a firebrand. I think would be pretty effective too. Oh, turret would be great with this build, especially a ceiling turret, which is, again, also a thing that this has over the turrets is that it's invincible, the Death Orb, but so is... But so is the ceiling turret as well. It is also invincible. As fun as it would be to see the King's Hand shimmy shake again, I don't think it's... I feel like Double Death Orb is not only a better build overall, it also fits a bit better into the run. And somebody say, I don't think I've ever seen you complete one of the challenges you try out in these videos. I think like one of the first ones I did on video, like all the way back in the Bloodsword Season 1 days was completed successfully. I think I even used that for the thumbnail. It's like, oh, come on. I'm bad at them. I'm not that bad at them. Despite what you may have just seen. Just get on with the Sepulchre here. I mean, wow. Good get. And honestly, that extra, what was it, 50%, I think it said? Totally worth it. It's pretty much the same affixes anyway. Yeah, the problem is, though, like I said, the start of the game is always a sprint. You can sprint through this part. But then as soon as you get to the castle, it becomes a marathon. You gotta be running and gunning, or taking it slow and killing everything just to get through the castle alone. And then the King's Hand fight is just... well, it's a long fight. No matter how you do it, it's a long fight. Like, there's very... unless you are building very explicitly only tactics, and when I say only tactics, I mean only tactics. Not even grabbing anything else. Good usage of the Death Orb there. I think I meant to turn around. That's the only time that you could conceivably do anything resembling bursting down the hand, but... even then, I did that on 0 cell mode, and it got pretty close to me running out of invincibility. Pyrotechnics would be good, but not 2 times pyrotechnics. I just said that I don't want that to be the primary damage healer, 1, and 2, I also don't want to die the second that I walk into the castle. Where I don't know, I assume that the king's statue would just fall on your head at that point, like a king's... Ultima 4 is what I was thinking about. Is that the one where you could kill Richard Garriott by dropping a sign on him? Nah, I don't know. I was gonna say King's Quest, and it's like, that's not even. Anyway, last key. Get out of here. And although this is not really the best, the assassin's way too mobile for slow death orbs and limited range fire torrent. I suppose the fire torrent itself is pretty fast. Also, worked out okay though. I also don't have a shield, so, you know, you get grabbed by the assassin and, well, it's not over, but it is a lot of damage to be taking. More damage than I'd be comfortable with in the assassin fight at this juncture of my Dead Cell's career. I got the build for it. Yeah, I got the build. I still took damage, though. What a lame ending. And for what? Money? I don't need money. The Dead Cell's career already pays way more than some amethyst would. Just get to the assassin. This is the mix-up of mutations I think you'd want either way. Even at this point, I was just like, do I want to take anything else? Would anything else even be useful? I don't know. I don't think so. I also think this is the last... I don't remember, but I think that in 2-cell mode, this is the last health refill station that you get, so, Yeah, damage weren't bad. I know I said weren't. But yeah, it takes, like, just... ugh. But there's where that rally comes in, you see? It's maybe not... that was embarrassing to get caught by the chain grab for maybe the first time in I don't even know how many episodes, but... I did manage to rally out most of that. However, the fact that I was taking some pretty severe damage against the assassin does not bode well for right now. Still can't upgrade the alchemic gun. That'll come soon enough. Yeah, if I'm going to be doing the Hokuto's bow run, I'm gonna probably want to have that fully upgraded, because on 4-cell mode, I think that could be a pretty good get. I think it's probably the most consistent damage over time dealer that you get from a distance. Also, it scales with brutality, right? Yeah, so I think if I was going to do Hokuto's bow, that would be a good one. Build brutality, then yeah. I don't know why I am trying to craft. This is the Death Orb video. Why am I trying to craft stuff for the Hokuto's bow run? That will come, I don't know, tomorrow or something. Or like 10 days later, judging by how I upload videos. It'll come in the next 300 weeks. And I just want to say that that last slasher kill was brought to you by DaVinci Resolve, the free color correction and also editing software that will only crash on you 3 to 5 times every time you try to record an episode. Well, that was a decent slasher fight, but God, I really shouldn't be getting hit by that. I mean, it just puts me at risk for dying to infection, especially if I decide to go try the... Ooh, there you go. Also, 2 episodes in a row with Firebrands. Really just... I don't think... Yeah, this is definitely a 2-key run. It is not one that I think is worth risking it. Because, again, this run, despite having great rally potential, still does not have much health associated with it. So, not getting... I mean, it's not even a question of fighting the elites. It's more of a question of getting into the tiny areas that the little... that the mini-bosses spawn in. I mean... I'm more worried about fighting all the Lancers and Guardian Knights going through the Botanic Laboratory here, rather than fighting the upcoming Thorny. Oh boy. And there's where you can see the weakness probably clearer than any other point in time in this run. Yeah. So yeah, this is a, well, grab the, because there is no way the hand would let me get anywhere near him to use Fire Torrent right now. No. This is clear out and get to the throne room. Oof. You take one hit like that, and you might not be dead, but you're definitely thinking about it. No health flask refilled. Same mutations. I don't see anything. There are some that have the potential for being better, but defensive is the way to go on this one. I'll just say that right now. However, for a hand fight, this goes pretty well. I mean, after that. Because the hand, especially for a lot of his attacks, he will just stay still. This is what I'm talking about with the power of passive damage and positive thinking. Look at him freaking blocking that. Whatever. Additionally, it will also make short work of those banners, too, which is always pretty nice. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, this is still only 2-cell mode, so as effectively as I'm whittling down his health, it is good to remember that it's not the hardest the game will ever be. I think that was also getting hung up on him when he was floating in the air too, which slowed down the Death Orb's trajectory a bit. So many flask usages here. That said, to be fair, a lot of this I was playing kind of impatiently too. So really, all in all, that was a pretty good hand fight. Oh, boy, do I need to get better at fighting this dude. Ah, well. I'll say this. Death Orb. Super good weapon. I would throw it up there as far as recommendations go. Just fantastic overall, especially with some of these changes that they made. The one where it doesn't get hung up on, well, where it doesn't disappear after hitting shielded enemies is just the one thing I always wanted with it. So yeah, 2 thumbs up.